Top 5 Best, Worst Movies of All Time. Whether you love them or hate them, videos are everywhere, and if you have an interest, I'm almost positive there's one sitting right on your shelf. Something that you might not be aware is that many people use some videos to fall asleep because of how boring they are. And actually, when you look at the numbers, it's probably more of us than you'd think. With that being said, here are 5 best, worst movies of all time, brought to you by Top 5's latest. But before we begin, don't forget to hit the red button down this video to subscribe to this channel and the bell button to get notified of our new videos every single day. So, let's get rolling. Number 5. Boyhood. One of the most ambitious films I have come across is The Boyhood. This intimate epic movie was shot over the course of 12 years by Richard Linklater about a boy's journey from childhood to adulthood. It's a technical marvel made with a lot of love, but it's also kind of a bore. The problem with Boyhood is that it's realistic to a fault. If you happen to have been a young lower middle class boy who grew up in certain parts of Texas, you'll be shocked to see just how well Boyhood captures the minutest aspects of that particular experience. If that doesn't describe you, then you'll likely be left to wonder why it is that almost every single scene is seemingly devoid of actual dramatic occurrences. Number 4. The Revenant. The Revenant is one of the best movies based on a Cormac McCarthy novel. It's a story that relies heavily on settings rather than dialogue, but despite this, it still features some incredible individual performances. The Revenant is a film that often feels like it's losing interest in its own story. There's nothing wrong with the minimalist plot, but The Revenant fires out of the gate as a somewhat high-octane revenge film and eventually becomes an almost supernatural, meditative journey about the human condition. That might have actually worked if it wasn't for the fact that director Alejandro G. Inarritu occasionally revisits the original story, much like the director is a parent assuring travel-weary children that they will eventually get to their destination. Number 3. The Spotlight. Spotlight's story is an undeniably important one. This film follows a group of Boston Globe reporters trying to uncover the truth behind a series of molestation charges within the church that have seemingly been covered up for years. What it really is, though, is a message about how good journalism is more important than ever at a time when good journalism isn't necessarily profitable. You could say the same thing about a movie like All the President's Men. However, while All the President's Men is spiritually close to a spy thriller, Spotlight goes out of its way to meticulously show every detail of the journalistic investigation process. As admirable as that goal is, the film is clearly trying to show that good reporting isn't always flashy. There are many times when you'll find yourself wishing that the movie would abandon its message and go ahead providing some traditional cinematic thrills. Number 2. Barry Lyndon. Barry Lyndon is probably one of the most obscure movies on this list, which is actually quite funny when you consider that it came from one of the best directors of all time. Still, Stanley Kubrick's 1975 movie about an Irish man's attempt to woo a wealthy widow has, much like Jackie Brown, long been relegated to other movie status. To tell you the truth, it's not hard to see why Lyndon doesn't receive the love that some of Kubrick's other movies do. Barry Lyndon is best described as an especially well-produced episode of Masterpiece Theory. Actually, it's more like a particularly stuffy museum. It's full of old and beautiful things, but you really need to like staring at old and beautiful things in order to derive any enjoyment from the experience. Number 1. A Space Odyssey. Before we let Mr. Kubrick off the hook, let's talk about what is arguably his greatest achievement. 2001: A Space Odyssey is maybe the most important sci-fi film ever made. It not only showed audiences that sci-fi films could be more than glorified monster movies, it forever set a new precedent in terms of special effects. It's a landmark for the ages. But man, it's also a boring movie. When you think back on 2001, you tend to remember the musical score, the evil AI, and that really trippy ending. All told, those aspects make up a minute percentage of this nearly 3-hour film. Much of the rest of the movie consists of astronauts going about their daily lives or floating wordlessly in space. While these quiet scenes do help ensure the dramatic moments land and were visually impressive for their time, this is not a movie that makes repeat viewings easy. And that is it on our list. What other supposedly great movies are a bit of a bore to you? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you like this video, don't forget to leave us a thumb up and hit the share button to let your friends know how boring some videos can be. See you around, guys.